the figures for how much can you grow doing this sort of management where you're grazing for recovery in the growing season, the rule of thumb is that compared to set stocking on land that's being managed for recovery, in a given season you have the capacity to grow between 2 and 3 times the amount of grass or biomass as when it's set stocked. Now that is a huge figure, that is a massive thing, and it's an incredibly important bit of information for farmers to have. I'm amazed when I've given quite a lot of talks to farmers, and I'm amazed at how little notice they take of the importance of that statement.
So essentially you can, given that, you're basically feeding you've got 2 or 3 times as much grass in a 12-month period,
Yep.
which is obviously then available to feed stock.
No, I think that can be an error, thinking that way. It's a natural way to think, and certainly when holistic management grazing was promoted in Australia, there was quite a bit of talk about doubling and trebling stocking rates. Some people have managed to do that, and you can do that at times, but it's a mistake to think that because you've got 2 or 3 times as much grass, you can run 2 or 3 times as many animals. You can from time to time, but you've got to be very quick on your feet if conditions change. So what it means to me is there's an ecological principle that for a complex community to maintain its structure and diversity, it has to use about 1/3 of the energy that it gets from the sun on an annual basis. Now that means that'll stop it from simplifying, it'll stop it from being run over by weeds. You'll have weeds, but you won't have many of them. This country here, we used to spray it every year for blue thistles, and you know there's a few here, but basically it's a grassland now. So that extra feed is what allows the community to remain complex. Now if you pinch it all, it'll simplify and you'll get overrun by weeds and you'll have bare ground, and you'll become responsible for all those functions that happen naturally in the landscape when it's complex. That's I reckon one of the most important things to know about how the world functions. It's not all for us.
Got to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to let it have enough energy to look after itself, and it'll do that at no cost to you. But you've got to let it have that energy to do that. So that's why it's important not to take it all.
A bit like bees, David. You can't go and steal all the honey before winter, otherwise they've
got nothing to live on.
They've got nothing to live on.
Yeah. So all that extra, which happens in a normal spring here. Normally in spring here, the grass is as high as the fence. And when you put a big mob of stock in, not huge areas here, quite a lot of that gets pushed onto the ground. That turns into feed for the next year's grass. So that is
feeding the soil.
Absolutely, feeding the big engine of life, which is what we can't see under our feet. You know, there's up to 10 times as much biomass of bugs and things in the soil, fungi and bacteria and all the things that live in the soil that we know little about. But we just have to accept that they are the big engine of life. That's what makes the world tick. And the thing about it is, all life is what creates life-friendly conditions. That's also an important thing to know. So the more life you can get onto your farm, the cheaper it's going to be to run, and it'll just be wonderful because it's just doing what it's naturally inclined to do, which is to be diverse, and you're letting that happen. That's an incredibly life-affirming thing, because the other model of agriculture that we all used to be in is actually a culture of death, because you're actually spending most of your time killing things.
Pesticide, herbicide.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. So they can create amazingly good conditions, but at a huge cost. And it's coming home to roost now. We've been putting off paying for those costs for a long time, but now we're realising that we need to manage in a way that lets the world manage itself.